A peaceful, remote colony planet, one of humanity's shining accomplishments in the stars. Families thrived there, safe, building lives that echoed a time before humanity's desperate struggle with the darkness beyond Earth. Among them, a young couple and their 2 children, laughter filling their days. Until that night. A cold, ruthless alien race known as the Xyler descended without warning. Silent ships slipped through the skies, unnoticed until it was too late. Doors splintered, screams echoed, and the innocent family, who'd known nothing of galactic politics or blood feuds, was cut down. Images of the massacre, captured from a security feed, burned across human screens in every corner of the galaxy. People recoiled, horrified, their hearts pounding with anger and grief. Across Earth, colonies, and outposts, the reaction was unanimous: outrage, pain, and a unified call for justice. This wasn't an attack on soldiers or a government facility. This was a strike on defenseless people, on a family with children, a quiet reminder from the Xyler that they viewed humans as weak, disposable. The brutality was a message, daring humanity to respond. But the Council's response was cautious. Diplomatic relations mattered, they argued. Retaliation could spark a galactic conflict. But the public outcry was unstoppable. It went beyond politics. It was personal. Those images, that horror, it struck everyone's hearts. Yet one voice within the Council rose above the cautious rhetoric. A veteran of countless covert missions proposed a radical solution: retaliation. Not war, but something targeted, precise, and unforgettable. The Council hesitated until the voice added 2 words: Sarah and Lucas. Sarah and Lucas were legends. Skilled assassins, yes, but more than that. They were ghosts, known for completing impossible missions that left their enemies shattered. But the Council's need aligned with a deeper drive in Sarah and Lucas. The massacre had stirred something they had long buried. They, too, had suffered unimaginable loss years ago, and those scars never healed. They agreed to the mission, not for fame, not for pay, but because this was a chance to settle a debt, an opportunity to deliver justice where it was most deserved. Before the Council's order was fully signed, Sarah and Lucas were already en route. They worked in silence, the weight of their shared past shaping every decision. They were used to facing danger, but this time, it wasn't just another job. This was personal. Their transport ship cut through the stars, slicing a path toward the Xyler's fortified homeworld. The Council knew the Xyler wouldn't expect this. Assassination, especially one targeting a royal family, was unheard of among humans. The Xyler, steeped in their power and tradition, wouldn't imagine humans capable of it. They would think humans too bound by protocol, too weak to carry out something so bold. But Sarah and Lucas were prepared to redefine humanity's limits. Upon reaching the Xyler homeworld, they touched down quietly, unnoticed among the planet's bustling ports. The Xyler capital was a fortress city, but it thrummed with the routines of a peaceful, overconfident society. Sarah and Lucas melded into the crowds, their every step calculated. Their calm, steady movements contrasted with the tension in their eyes, the focus of 2 people carrying the weight of both vengeance and survival. They spent days moving like shadows, observing, learning, preparing. The palace itself was a marvel of alien architecture, vast and intimidating, surrounded by defenses meant to protect the royal family from armies, not too determined assassins. Sarah noted every guard rotation, every shift change. Lucas memorized the intricate patterns of the palace's energy grids, marking potential points of weakness. They moved with quiet efficiency, passing unnoticed through alien streets and halls. This was their domain, and the Xyler's arrogance only played into their hands. During their reconnaissance, they got their first glimpse of the Xyler royal family. Tall, armored, and undeniably intimidating, they carried themselves with a blend of arrogance and cruelty. They reveled in their superiority, laughing, unaware that their world was about to change. Watching them, Sarah felt a flicker of satisfaction. The Xyler had no idea of the storm about to strike them. Each night, Sarah and Lucas returned to their hidden quarters, perfecting their plans. Every detail mattered, every moment had to be precise. They communicated without words, understanding each other's thoughts, memories of past missions guiding them. But there was a gravity to this one they both felt deeply. They weren't just two assassins on a job, they were symbols of humanity's resolve. Finally, the night arrived. Their every move was meticulously timed. As they moved through the palace's outer corridors, bypassing security and slipping past guards with practiced ease, they felt the weight of their purpose settling over them. They were nearing the throne room. Sarah and Lucas advanced through the labyrinth of corridors, each step a calculated, silent beat. They had mapped the place thoroughly over the past few days, and now, in the cloak of night, their plan came alive. Every turn, every shadow held a piece of the strategy they had meticulously woven, and they knew each one intimately. With masks over their faces and cloaks blending them into the dim surroundings, they moved with the precision and confidence of veterans, carrying the weight of their mission in their eyes and steady breaths. Navigating through the first layer of defenses, they reached an area few outsiders ever saw, the network of access tunnels used only by palace workers. Here, whispers of alien servants echoed in the corridors, but no one saw them pass. Every time a servant approached, they stilled, melting into the walls and shadows. Hours of practice had honed their instincts for movement and silence. They were practically invisible. Lucas kept a countdown in his mind, marking each stage of their infiltration with flawless timing. His gaze shifted constantly, alert for any sudden changes, but he was focused, unshakable. Sarah kept pace, her mind a perfect alignment of their strategy, her movements fluid and calm. Ahead, a checkpoint. They watched the guards, their alien armor glinting under dim lights. This was one of the tighter security points, with sensors and a small detachment stationed to catch anyone daring enough to approach. Sarah tapped her wrist, activating a small device that emitted a short-range pulse, disrupting the sensors for a few crucial seconds. They slipped through, unobserved, Lucas taking point as they passed the guards, unseen phantoms in an alien fortress. The inner sanctum lay beyond, guarded by a layered security grid, energy barriers glowing faintly. It would be impossible to disable them without alerting every guard in the palace. But Sarah and Lucas had accounted for this. They carried a mimicry device that scrambled their energy signature to resemble the authorized personnel, an edge crafted from humanity's desperation and creativity. Lucas activated it, and they passed through the energy fields, feeling the slight buzz against their skin, knowing each step brought them closer to their targets. Now, they reached the palace's central courtyard, an expanse that served as a display of Xylar power and wealth. Alien flora bloomed in iridescent shades under the artificial lights, creating a hauntingly beautiful display. Statues of past Xylar leaders loomed, expressions twisted in arrogance and pride. Sarah felt a flicker of anger as she glanced at these cold faces, thinking of the human lives taken in brutal disregard. But she pushed the feeling down, centering her focus. Emotions would come later, for now, they had a mission to finish. As they crossed the courtyard, they saw two alien guards patrolling the far end. They halted, pressing themselves into the shadows, barely breathing. The guards passed, speaking in low, guttural tones in their native language. Sarah and Lucas waited, motionless until the figures were out of sight, then resumed their advance. They were close now, closer than any human had ever been to the heart of Xylar power, a place thought impregnable, unreachable. Yet here they were, ghosts of vengeance slipping through the core of an empire. The final barrier loomed ahead, a reinforced gate leading to the royal wing. Lucas accessed the panel beside it, entering an override code they'd acquired during their preparation. Seconds felt like minutes as the gate scanned them, sensors ticking over every cell, every anomaly. The mimicry device held, fooling the system as intended. The gate opened with a quiet hum, revealing a path to the inner chambers. They entered, the air thick with a sense of alien authority. Intricate tapestries lined the walls, and the dim, oppressive lighting gave the hallways an air of intimidation. Each step now felt heavier, not from fear but from the weight of their purpose. They could feel the nearness of their targets, could almost hear the alien monarch's breaths in the quiet. Sarah and Lucas had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. They weren't here to escape undetected. They were here to leave a message, one that would echo through the Xylar worlds and beyond. A servant passed nearby, and for a second, their eyes met. The servant, a young alien, recoiled in shock, about to cry out, but Sarah's gaze was a silent command. A mixture of fear and awe filled the servant's eyes as they backed away, disappearing into a side room. It was a reminder of the legend that surrounded Sarah and Lucas. Their very presence could unnerve, even terrify, those who knew of their exploits. Approaching the main hall of the royal family's quarters, they slowed, listening. Alien voices murmured, deep and rumbling, from behind the doors. It was a moment Sarah had imagined countless times since accepting this mission. The voices of those who had ordered the slaughter, whose indifference to human lives had sparked a flame that would now consume them. She tightened her grip on her weapon, the resolve in her gaze hardening. With a single nod, Lucas indicated they were ready. He placed a hand on the door's control panel, initiating the override. Sarah's pulse remained steady, her breathing controlled. This was the culmination of their silent approach, the last step before vengeance. As the doors slid open, the figures of the royal family came into view. Draped in ornate robes and armor, the aliens turned, shock widening their eyes. The air in the room thickened with a sudden, deadly tension. The royals knew in that instant that this was no diplomatic visit, no common intrusion. They were face to face with the consequences of their actions, and they were powerless to stop it. Sarah and Lucas moved forward, slow and unyielding, the room silent except for the soft hum of alien technology. The royals, towering and formidable in their own right, took a step back. Their expressions shifted from confusion to fear. For the first time, they understood that their lives, their legacy, were ending in the very seat of their power. The silence stretched, heavy and tense, as the royals stood frozen, caught between shock and fear. Sarah and Lucas advanced, steps steady, their presence in the room like a storm building up force. The Xyla ruler, flanked by his advisors and family, began to regain composure, straightening and letting a sneer cross his face. He was a towering figure, draped in intricate layers of armor, each piece a testament to power, strength, and a life untouched by fear, until now. The ruler stepped forward, raising one hand to stop the guards who rushed to his side. His voice, guttural and laced with arrogance, echoed through the chamber as he spoke in his language, belittling their audacity. He taunted them, claiming they'd fall like the weaklings they defended, daring them to make a move in his court. But Sarah and Lucas said nothing. They didn't flinch, didn't show the slightest hint of fear or hesitation. Their silence, their cold, unyielding gaze struck deeper than any words could. The ruler's confidence began to waver. He glanced back at his family, perhaps realizing this encounter would be different, that these were no ordinary opponents. In a calculated motion, Lucas made the first move, launching forward with a precision and speed that spoke of a lifetime of training. The alien guards, who had barely taken their positions, were cut down in seconds, their bulky armor no match for the precise efficiency of Lucas's attack. Sarah moved next, her every movement calculated, lethal, delivering blows that left no room for retaliation. The royals watched, horror dawning in their eyes, as their guards fell one by one. The room, once filled with their mocking confidence, was now tinged with panic. The ruler's advisors stumbled backward, their cries sharp and desperate as they realized they were next. One of them, shaking, pleaded for mercy, his voice filled with fear and disbelief. He stumbled over his words, claiming they had only followed orders, that they hadn't been the ones responsible. But Sarah's cold gaze silenced him. She advanced, deliberate, her every step a reminder that their lives were forfeit. The ruler, now stripped of his guards and his pride, finally understood the depths of the consequences. Rage contorted his features as he lunged forward, powerful and ferocious, but his desperation clouded his judgment. Lucas was ready, sidestepping the blow and countering with a precision strike, forcing the ruler to stagger back, weakened. The ruler's expression twisted from fury to panic as he faltered, realizing that strength alone wouldn't save him. The youngest member of the royal family, a girl barely old enough to understand the gravity of the situation, hid behind her mother, her wide eyes fixed on the unfolding carnage. Her mother, frantic, clutched her daughter protectively, her gaze darting from the assassins to the exits, searching for a way out. Sarah noticed the mother's desperate expression and felt a flicker of something, a reminder of the family who had been mercilessly slaughtered, who had no chance, no escape. For a moment she hesitated, memories flashing through her mind. But she steeled herself, remembering the purpose that had brought them here. This was justice. There would be no mercy for those who showed none. With a swift motion, she disarmed the advisor who tried to shield the ruler, leaving him defenseless. The advisor fell to his knees, pleading once more, his voice trembling. But the pleas fell on deaf ears. They had come to avenge the innocent, to ensure those responsible for senseless deaths felt the weight of their actions. As Sarah and Lucas advanced on the ruler, he snarled, his pride refusing to let him cower. With a final burst of defiance, he tried to rally his family, his voice filled with commands and curses, but it was clear his words were empty, devoid of power. He was cornered, trapped by the very walls that once symbolized his dominance. Sarah's gaze held his, unyielding, as she closed in, her weapon poised for the final strike. His defiance faded, replaced by a raw, desperate fear that revealed the coward beneath the armor and titles. Then, in a moment of panic, the ruler tried to bargain. His voice cracked as he spoke, desperation twisting his tone. He claimed the massacre hadn't been an act of cruelty but a test, a necessary step in evaluating humanity's strength. He spat out the words, accusing humans of being weak, that they had needed this wake-up call. His words were meant to justify, to explain away the blood he'd spilled, but they only fueled Sarah and Lucas's resolve. Lucas, his face unreadable, responded with a cold, clipped phrase. "Your test has cost you everything." The ruler's face contorted, realizing his words had sealed his fate. His final attempt to assert his power shattered under the weight of human justice, of the lives he had disregarded so easily. The irony struck him, his own arrogance a trap he'd set for himself, and now he would pay the price. As the last members of the royal family cowered, Sarah and Lucas acted in silence, each movement purposeful, precise. The mother's cries, the ruler's hollow threats, faded into the background as the weight of the mission took over. Justice wasn't always clean, it was harsh, uncompromising, and tonight, it had arrived with the force of a storm. When it was over, silence filled the chamber. The air was thick, almost tangible with the gravity of what had just transpired. Sarah and Lucas stood amidst the remnants of the Xylar royalty, their figures still and composed, their mission complete. For a moment, they stood in that quiet, surrounded by the cold echoes of a dynasty's end. No satisfaction, no triumph, only a sense of finality, a weight lifted, knowing they had delivered justice. They looked at each other, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. This was what they had come for, what they had risked everything for. But they also knew the weight of what they had done would stay with them, a mark on their souls that would never fade. With one last look at the fallen rulers, they turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the legacy of a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Humanity was not weak, not prey. Sarah and Lucas moved through the palace corridors, silent as shadows, leaving the aftermath of their mission behind. They slipped out with the same precision they had entered, every step calculated, every turn a part of their mental map. The memories of the Xylar royal family, broken and defeated, lingered, a testament to the consequence of disregarding human lives. As they left the palace and navigated back through the alien city, the first lights of dawn began to break, casting a pale glow over the cityscape, as if to wash away the blood spilled in the dark. Their transport awaited them in a secluded spot, hidden from the bustling streets of the capital. They boarded in silence, the weight of their mission hanging heavy between them. The engines hummed to life, carrying them up through the atmosphere and away from the Xylar homeworld. Only when the stars stretched around them, filling the viewport with their silent watch, did they feel the tension begin to ease. But it wasn't relief. There was no celebration, no satisfaction, only a shared, quiet understanding that what they'd done would mark them forever. The news of the assassination spread through human colonies and alien territories alike. Humanity had sent a message, clear and undeniable. Across the galaxy, Whispers circulated, stories of two humans who had infiltrated the heart of the Xylar Empire and dismantled its ruling family without mercy. Alien factions that had once dismissed humanity began to rethink their assessments, viewing them now as a formidable, unpredictable force. The tales of Sarah and Lucas grew in the retelling, each version more formidable, more legendary than the last. The very myth of what they had accomplished would ripple through the galaxy, reshaping perceptions and alliances. On Earth, the response was split. In certain circles, Sarah and Lucas were hailed as heroes, the couple who avenged innocent lives and defended humanity's honor. Crowds gathered in squares, chanting their names, carrying images of the massacred family that had sparked this vengeance. They were praised, even deified in some factions, as symbols of human resilience, warriors who had taken the bold step that the government had been hesitant to make. But not everyone celebrated. Some questioned the morality of the mission, debating whether such violence was truly justified, whether it set a dangerous precedent for human relations with other species. Diplomatic leaders expressed concerns over the fallout, fearing the consequences of escalating tensions with alien empires. The ethical debates flooded news channels and political forums, with arguments about the line between justice and vengeance. The council itself was divided, some officials wrestling with the gravity of what they had sanctioned, aware that this would forever alter humanity's place in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Sarah and Lucas returned to a life that felt strangely quiet in comparison to the mission's intensity. They carried the weight of the act, not as a burden, but as a part of them now, woven into their very beings. They didn't seek out the fame that had sprouted around them, didn't indulge in the reverence or scrutiny. For them, the mission had been a necessity, a call to right a wrong, and now that it was done, they simply wanted peace. But peace, they realized, was a complex thing to find when one had walked through the darkness. The galaxy, however, wouldn't let them forget. Messages flooded in from human and alien factions alike, requests for alliances, offers of work from those who viewed them as symbols of power. Their reputation as elite assassins was now eclipsed by their new title, Avengers of Humanity. Those who sought them out often found only silence, their inquiries unanswered. Sarah and Lucas had retreated into a quieter existence, distancing themselves from the world's fascination with their story. Privately, they reflected on what the mission had cost them. They had done what they believed was right, but both felt the hollow, aching consequences of their choice. They spoke little of it, understanding each other's thoughts without the need for words. There were moments when the memories surfaced, quiet and unbidden, the alien faces, the fear that had turned to pleading, the finality of it all. But they had chosen this path, and they accepted the scars it left. Over time, the galaxy's focus shifted, the fervor around the assassination gradually fading as other events filled the news. The Xylar Empire, left leaderless, fractured into internal chaos. Various factions vied for power, their politics turbulent and fraught with instability. Some alien species saw this as an opportunity to claim dominance over the weakened Xylar territories, leading to conflicts that reshaped the region. The assassination had not only toppled the royal family but had ignited a shift in the power dynamics across the galaxy, leaving ripples that would be felt for years to come. For humanity, the aftermath brought a deeper understanding of their own identity. The mission had shown them that they were no longer the vulnerable newcomers to the galaxy, struggling to secure a place among other species. They had demonstrated strength, resolve, and an unyielding commitment to justice. But they had also glimpsed the darker edges of that resolve, the willingness to cross moral boundaries in the name of protecting their own. It was a lesson, a reflection on the complexities of power, and one that would shape humanity's future choices. Sarah and Lucas remained symbols of that lesson, silent reminders of the cost of vengeance. They lived quietly, blending into the fabric of their community, their days filled with ordinary moments. They didn't seek out missions or glory, didn't dwell on what the galaxy thought of them. For them, the mission was done, and its legacy belonged to others now. Occasionally, they would meet the eyes of those who recognized them, those who whispered their names in reverence or fear. But they would offer no explanations, no justifications. The galaxy could draw its own conclusions. They had found their own sense of closure. They knew, ultimately, that they had changed something fundamental in the universe's perception of humanity, and that was enough. As time passed, they watched the stars in silence, knowing that their actions had reshaped the future. But they also knew the future was out of their hands now. They had played their part, left their mark, and in that quiet knowledge, they finally found a semblance of peace, together, amidst the vastness of a galaxy that would never quite forget them.